Hello, hello, and welcome to Lazio World. Consider this your stoppage time. We just wrapped up finishing Monza versus Lazio this evening, and I'm joined by a special guest with Sean being out. Italo, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Even better now. It's never a bad day when Lazio get a win. It's even better when Roma get a loss, which is pretty often nowadays. So,
It's becoming a bit of a standard over there, huh?
oh yeah, it's amazing.
No, it's been good. It's been good. So, Sean, for those of you, we normally have Sean here on the show. He's currently out doing his own soccer business. He's a big CEO of a team here in the States. He's traveling back from a playoff match, so he couldn't join us. However, I'm sure he's tuning in remotely here. But want to just talk a bit about the match. Not going to go too much into the details of it. Not to 1-0. Zaccagni scored a lone goal. How are you feeling about the match? How are you feeling about the performance? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's another huge win. I mean, these are the types of wins that Lazio would not take last year. Like we would either tie this one, we would have given up a goal at the end, we would have lost, something would have happened, but we took the three
Mhm.
points. It's at the beginning of the match, I don't know if I've seen Baroni play with those tactics yet. Have you? It seemed
Mm.
quite different from what he usually plays, like with the three in the middle,
Mm.
and then the three up front. So it felt a little bit risk adverse compared to his usual tactics. We weren't pressuring as much. We were kind of waiting for Monza to make a mistake. They weren't taking too many chances in attack. I got to say at the beginning, I wasn't really too fond of it because I felt like Monza
Mm.
as a bottom of the table team could, I would have thought we'd be more aggressive, but you know, when you look at the amount of games we've played, maybe the team was a bit tired. Maybe they wanted to, maybe Baroni didn't want to have him run as much at the beginning of the match. I don't know, but at the end of the day, we got those 3 points, and that's all that matters.
100%. I know. I think all of us have noticed that, and I saw many comments on Twitter saying that these are the type of results that Lazio have not been able to put away in the past few years. These are results that have been really the difference maker. When you're playing top teams, those should be your bonus points, right? These types of games, this is where you build seasons with. This is what is your foundation. You have to win these to even be competing for top four, right? And then those matches against the bigger teams, that sort of makes the big difference in the end in terms of whether you're, third, fourth, fifth, right? However, winning these games is what builds seasons. This is the foundation, and Baroni has been spot on with that this season. And I think it really comes down to mentality of the team itself. Um, there's just sort of a grit and a fight in this team where, hey, it's okay if we don't do it pretty. We're not going to slouch. We're not going to complain. We're going to find a way. And I think we did that today. So today's match was, at least from what I saw, was a bit, like you said, it was a bit different tactical one. It wasn't as lively offensively. It was a bit lackluster, I think, what we're used to seeing. But we are in a stretch that's been really busy for us, and our midfielders have been having to run quite a bit. Vecino came off today. We have Guendouzi, Rovella, and Vecino.
Yeah.
After that, that's pretty much it right now. The Castro really hurt, and behind that, there's nothing else. And so, managing that's been difficult. It's been something that Baroni's had to also endure throughout this stretch, but he's done a good job. Um, I kind of want to go right into the players that stood out for you. Who stood out to you today? Who's your man of the match?
I mean, in a 1-0 match, it has to be, unless he had a terrible game, but he didn't. He played great. Is Zaccagni. I mean,
Yeah.
vintage Zaccagni goal. Uh, and that was the difference today. So yeah, man of the match has to go to Zaccagni. But you have some honorable mentions. I think Rovella's just been outstanding. Like I don't think he had that one pass he messed up where he gave the ball to Maldini, but then he kind of pushed him off the ball, and Maldini got that yellow
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
yapping at the ref. But I mean, other than that, I haven't seen him make a poor pass in weeks. So
Mm.
Zaccagni for me, but I mean, Rovella had an incredible match, and Tavares, as always, was amazing.
No, I agree. And excuse me, it was Guendouzi that came off the pitch. Vecino stayed on the whole time. But anyways,
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree, man. I think Zaccagni's had a little bit of extra pressure on him this season because he is the captain. He's someone that we're having to rely on. In games like this where we're having to rotate, Zaccagni came in and I thought it looked to me that he sort of felt that responsibility of, "I need to make something happen." Like, we're resting Tati, we're in deep into these games, I need to make something happen, and he did, and it was beautiful, it was awesome. Love to see it. I guess for me, just so that Zaccagni was also my man of the match, I'll change it up, and I'll go with, Tavares as well. Again, continues to be one of our most dangerous players, honestly, our most dangerous attacker. I mean, we're talking someone that strictly creates danger, creates chances for this team. Tavares has really taken that mantle up, and he's been brilliant.
Yeah,
How about on the other side, who kind of stood out to you as having a poor sort of match? Who was your bidone of the match here?
yeah. Actually, I just want to say one thing about Tavares, but like, have you
Go
seen?
ahead.
I watch a lot of Serie A games this year, but Tavares as a left back, I don't think one on one in Serie A, I don't think I've seen a better player this. Like he has not every time he gets in a position where he's one on one, he's unbeatable. Like he just
Oh,
he
100%.
blows past this guy. The guy gets a yellow card. He's just a train. He's our best player one on one, and he's a left back.
I
It's
would,
crazy.
yeah. No, you're totally right. And sometimes I think to myself, man, what a shame that he's a left back,
Yeah.
you
I mean,
know?
really he could play. You could put him on the left wing or the right wing, and he'd crush it as well too.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned that again because I'm looking at the stats now. I was kind of curious to see how he sort of measures up when it comes to successful dribbles in Serie A, and he's currently the 96th percentile.
Yeah,
He's got to be top 10. I mean, I'll be shocked if he is anything less than that. And so that's just a testament to his skill, his ability, and also I do think that Baroni needs a little bit of love too because I think many times we see coaches come in and it's like, hey, if you're not this profile, you're not gonna cut it, right?
right,
Mato Citro's played a lot because he's sort of this offensive player, kind of stood back a little bit. Sadi like to have that balance of more of attacking wingback and a defensive one. Whereas Baroni has seen Tavares and been like, how can we build the team and put him in situations where we can utilize his strengths? Because you can have all that talent as a left
right.
back, but if your coach is a little more rigid, not as he's more risk averse, for example, then we won't see that from him. But
Right.
not only has been putting him and giving him that freedom to, hey, do what you want, I'll figure out the rest. Like do what you do, and I'll figure out the rest, right?
Yeah, and the team covers for him too. When he's in attack, like the team does a great job rotating. When Tavares moves up, you see
Hmm.
Guendouzi dropping back or Rovella dropping back and filling in that position. So the team just plays really well together in supporting him going forward. But I mean, as far as Bidone goes, I was thinking you were going to ask this, and it kept changing like throughout the match.
Hmm.
But for me, it has to. Unfortunately, I got to give it to. He didn't play the whole match, but I have to give it to Tati. He came
Hmm.
on. It was between him and Isaksen, but Tati and Isaksen were brought on and given tons of space. Like Monza were attacking, they were brought on to counter and to do something with that. And Tati had two clear. One was just like, and we've seen him miss chances like that before. But yeah, it has. It just I love Tati, especially this season. But that looked like the Tati from last season for sure.
Absolutely. It's also difficult too because it's sort of hey, I mean, we weren't getting those kind of clear cut chances when Tati wasn't on. He got on immediately, made an impact by
Right.
getting in situations where you have these clear chances. Again, and we kind of said that a lot last season. It's like Tati would get in these situations, like he creates these opportunities with his movement, his tenacity. But you have to put them away, and of course, Tati is very much. You give him a little grace in the first season. The second season, he is a talisman up front. I was mentioning to someone in the chat. I was texting some Lazio friends of mine, and I was saying, I'm really surprised, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I'm really surprised that Tati is the one playing the nine, and Dia plays more as that sort of second striker 10 role. I initially thought when Dia came in, if they were to play together, that Tati would play more underneath Dia, who seems to be more of a traditional focal point nine, whereas Tati is very much more of a. I see him a lot as sort of like a Dybala and Griezmann type of striker, where he's sort of
Yeah.
this floating second striker, sort of a hybrid between a creator, like a striker and a 10, a playmaking striker in a way. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would have thought that, like, I'm of the same mind. I would have thought the same thing. Like, if we were gonna play, that was the whole talk last year when Tati was, when he wasn't scoring goals and he was getting a lot of hate. It was like, let's play Chiro and Tati together because Tati seems like someone that can, he's got good technical ability, can pass. He's athletic. So I would have thought for sure that Baroni would have played him behind Dia, but I don't know. It seems to have worked out. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he thinks Tati's better in the air with his hold up play. Tati can get up for sure. Um, but the thing is, when I've seen Dia in those positions, like today he started and he was pretty invisible for the most part. He had that opportunity, and I thought it was a good shot. The keeper made a really good save. The funny thing is, like, it's weird because Dia was largely invisible today in that position. That said, like Tati was obviously a little bit more lively when he came on. It was a different point in the game, but if the roles are reversed, I think Dia in those positions that Tati was in at the end of the game puts in at least one of those.
That's the funny thing, right? Is that I agree because Dia, to be fair, I think when we signed him, and even I'm guilty of this myself. When I signed Dia, I was really excited to have Dia because we had lost a focal point in Cheeto, and I looked at the roster and the team and was looking over at the squad, and there's no real true nine on this team. So Dia came in, and I was like, fantastic, perfect, true nine, traditional. But Dia showed us a side of his game that I didn't know he really had, which was sort of this floating second striker. Like he plays that role well. Like he's had good
Right.
passes, he set up passes, he set up goals for his teammates. At the same time, we see him in this game. He does get that start at the nine. He's not seen as much. He doesn't have too many chances. Tati gets on immediately at the nine. So maybe it's something to do with their movement. Keep in mind, this team has a lot of freedom to move. Like Tati and
Yeah.
Dia have a ton of freedom to sort of change and even within the Zakanyi coming off the side or the right winger coming in, there's a lot of freedom in position. So it yes, Tati is a nine, but Tati also you find Tati back in the midfield at times to get the ball, right?
It's true.
So
Yeah.
so just curious to see. I mean, it's worked out so far. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Tati for me as well was the Bidoni of the match. It's unfortunate because he did create those chances, but you have to put them away, and the team was under pressure at the end there. However, they pulled through, and I think this is a trend that we've seen in this stretch of hours. When Sean and I first got on the show about a month ago, heading into this month, we saw these four matches that we've played here in Serie A, particularly. And those matches were going to be against, let me see, because I don't remember them off the top of my head. But it was a series here where we had Genoa, Como, Cagliari, and we had Monza, right?
Yeah.
These are the four league matches we had. And when me and Sean came on the show with Stevie, we said we need to win every single one of those games. Now, of
Yep.
course, both of us are like, that should be the expectation. But it's Lazio. We'll drop a few points in one of these games. But here we are, 4 games later in the league, 6 games, probably in the last month here, and we have won every single one of those matches.
Mhm.
Did you expect this? Is this how are you feeling after this stretch?
I said the same thing. I looked at this stretch of matches, and because for me at the beginning of the season, obviously there was a lot of negativity around the team. I had my thoughts like Lazio's probably going to finish like sixth at best, maybe eighth. But looking at this stretch of matches, yeah, I was like, we got to win every single one of these. But in my head, I was like, we're probably going to. I assumed we would tie one of these. It was either going to be last week's. I thought was going to be a little bit of a mental lapse, which I thought it still was, but we got a result against Cagliari, and then today as well too. And it felt more and more like that as the match went on. It felt like it was both matches felt like one of those things where it just wasn't it something was going to happen because we had these chances to put the game away and we weren't going to put it away.
Yeah.
So it felt like this is going to come to bite us in the ass because it just has so
Mhm.
many times before. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can't say, like I said, I thought a bunch of wins and maybe one tie. So I was definitely bullish on them to do well over the stretch, but I didn't think they'd win every single match. I thought you'd see a missed result at some point.
No, I agree. We were a little greedy, both Sean and I, like we have to win this. Stevie tried to put us in check of guys, we're Lazio though. And we're like, dang, that's true. And whereas I knew we could beat all these teams to actually execute, do it, uh, go through the mental rigors of all these matches, the physical ones, and still come out on top in these games is a huge credit to everyone on the team. What for you has been the biggest factor in this stretch? What's been what's changed in this team that otherwise would have dropped points in a stretch like this before, but hasn't this time around? What's changed?
It just has to be, for one, it has to be one thing is the rotation, like and Baroni. He's been able to rotate the squad. He's using everyone that is like that he has. No one has not been used. So everyone's playing, everyone's getting minutes. He's rotating the squad perfectly. So we're definitely a lot more fresh than we were. Like we would look tired in a lot of games under Sadi because the same 11 were playing match after match, regardless of how they played. So we'd look poor here and there. But it's also the mentality for some reason. He just has this team this season. They're able to suffer a lot more than they would before. Like they can deal with pressure for long periods of time. Like Juve, it was unfortunate, but they were beat up playing a man down for over 75 minutes. And that for me, that's the biggest change in this team. Just their ability to suffer and deal with like poor periods where they're under pressure and just soak it up and then come out on top, get a goal. Yeah, that's the makeup of good teams. Like, can you get results when you're under pressure, when you're suffering, when you're playing poorly, and they've been able to do that.
I love that you said their ability to suffer. I think that's easily sort of the biggest difference that we've seen from this team compared to Asadi's team last season. And part of me thinks that, yeah, I think it's very telling how Baroni approaches his press conferences compared to that of Sadi. Sadi has come out and complained or tried to come up with certain things that went wrong in matches, whereas Baroni's approach has been very much like, no excuses, doesn't matter, we'll find a way. Sort of that tone. And I think that tone, that sort of attitude that we see publicly portrayed by the coaches, I think it trails down into the players. Because yes, this team has changed a lot in terms of what we saw, particularly, under Inzaghi and early on with Sadi. However, a lot of the players that were here last year are still here this season. We lost
Mhm.
Cheeto, which you could take a hit in terms of mentality. A leader goes out. We lost Alberto, who has a bit of a diva, as we know. Sometimes is on, sometimes is off. But like by and large, this team is very similar in terms of the core players as last year. But Baroni has done a better job of getting the team mentally whipped up. We normally have um, a player of the match. I'm curious to know who's been your player of this stretch. These 6 wins, since Juve, 6 straight wins. Who has been sort of the key player throughout this stretch?
I feel like it's illegal to say anybody else than Pedro. Like, like it can't be anyone else. I mean, the guy's 37 years old. That's another thing. Like he kind of had a bit of a quiet game tonight, but he
He did.
like I mean he's 37 years old. The guy has been playing. I don't understand. Like I was surprised he was starting today. I don't know how he has the energy like just to go through this game after game. Like these have been games every 3 days, and he's been starting these matches. He's been playing like 90 minutes in some
Yeah.
cases, and he's been.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's like in this stretch, it's been 3 goals and 2 assists or something.
Something like that, yeah.
So
Mhm.
it just, I mean, to have a player like that, also with his experience, I think players see him, the younger players, and it helps motivate the squad. So it has to be him for me.
Yeah, 100%, totally agree. And now sort of last little bit here, we've entered we've had about a month stretch here where we've played lower seeded opponents that we should be beating on paper, right? It has been a relatively easy schedule for the most part. I would argue that probably Porto is maybe the most difficult team we face in the stretch, right?
Yep.
However, we look at December and things change up quite a bit. During the month of December, we will be playing Napoli twice. We'll be playing Ajax away in Europa
Yep.
League. We're playing Inter as well, Lecce, Atalanta, and then at the beginning of the year we have Roma and the Derby della Capitale. Um, it's a completely different stretch of games here, completely different expectations, I would think. What are sort of yours coming into December? What would you like to see from this month?
I think the first coming off this international break, we got Bologna. I think obviously in
Yep,
Serie
Bologna.
A, especially the home games, Lazio's been. I don't think we've lost the game at home since March. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's what I heard. I'd have to look at it again, but it's been a long time. So we've been it, playing at the Olympico has been it's been a fortress for us. So I expect 3 points, especially coming after the international breaks. Interesting because Bologna basically plays 2 games back to back in Rome, so
Hmm.
that could help them a bit. They might have some confidence going into that game. So it's a sneaky one because
It
they
is.
just beat Roma at the Olimpico. That not saying much because everyone's beating Roma nowadays. But Ludogorets, the Europa. I don't know if you know this, but because I'm not sure how it works either. I know top 8 in Europa goes directly through, but I don't know if the positioning in that top 8 matters much. So
That's a great question.
I don't know
Um,
if it goes into a draw after that.
I, my understanding, the advantage of finishing top eight, you automatically go through. However, even the main difference between that, because there's some ones that get through into the next round. However, we don't have to play what I don't know what the FIFA's calling it, but it's sort of a play-in, playoff type of game to
Right,
get into those knockouts, right? So we avoid all
right.
that. In terms of proceeding, that's a good question. You know, are we just being put into the same pot, right? And we'll just get drawn that way. Would one face and maybe the because we actually have a very clear positioning on the table now, right? We
We
could
do,
say
yeah,
first plays 30th, right? I mean, it could be that. So I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to definitely look into that and see
yeah. Because
if
then
that's if,
those
go ahead.
games become less like if we beat Ludogorets, that's another 3 points. You're in a commanding position at that point.
Right.
If one is the same as 8, then they'll probably I'm sure they let up a bit. But the thing is, those games in December aren't besides Ajax. They're mostly it's league and Coppa Italia. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. Like the games against Napoli, and then we're playing Inter and Atalanta. It's going to be interesting, but we got to see with Inter at home, Atalanta at home. If our expectations are Champions League at this point, they should be. I think, given how the season
I
has
agree.
gone, like they got to be
Hmm.
chasing top 4. You have to beat one of those
Hmm.
teams at home, Inter or Atalanta,
Hmm.
because you're. I know Inter's a Scudetto contender. You could say Atalanta's a Scudetto contender too,
Hmm.
but at home, you have to take 3 points in one of those games.
I agree.
Napoli,
And
it's tough.
No, I agree, and I checked here really quick to see if there was any significance to those top 8, and it seems like no. The advantage is you advance through, but there's no sort of positioning or advantage from finishing first or 8th.
That's great.
So in that case, that does alleviate some of those later games. If we put ourselves in a good position now, we don't have to rotate as much, or maybe we play some of the. It's not as much pressure in that. So with that, now that we know that, we do have Coppa Italia coming up in this next month with how we're doing in Europa League and how we're doing in the season itself on the table, how do you approach Coppa Italia? Is it now a throwaway competition for you? What are you thinking there?
No, I think we gotta chase cups wherever we can. So, the Coppa Italia as well too. I think it should be important, especially, Napoli's just I guess this would be the quarters. It's just a match, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
So
It is, yeah, just the quarters, yeah.
yeah, I think you got to put for sure a level of importance on that. You know, Napoli will because that's the only other competition they're playing in. So it could be a tough one. But um, Baroni wants a title for sure. I mean, like I think this team is it's I think we may have had those expectations in the past just because of the coaches we had, like with Sadi, where Sadi was always complaining about like all these matches and
Mhm.
all these competitions, whereas Baroni seems to be loving it. He knows how to rotate the squad. Um, and we're seeing the same level of performance in every competition. So it, this team gives it their all in every match. I think we're gonna go for it, and I think we should.
That's good. Okay. Cause we play Napoli. I saw some debates online of, hey, we play Napoli within a 3 day span. Which one of those matches are we going to prioritize? Are we going to really push hard and play the best 11 in the Coppa Italia match or in the league match? Because right now, Lazio is, well, depending the result today. I mean, we would lose that spot. We're currently sitting first, tied with Atalanta, Napoli, Inter, and that's going to change
I
in a
think
couple hours
Fiorentina
here.
too is up
And
there.
Fiorentina as well, exactly. These league games against Napoli now, right? All of a sudden has different little weight to it. At one point Napoli was just so far ahead, but yet here Lazio are, right? So are you, for that particular one? Are you going all out for that Coppa Italia game, or are you going to try and go all out for the league game, which is away? Which is away. Keep in mind.
Yeah, the Coppa Italia game, yeah, is at home. The league game is
Hmm.
away. We were in the same position last year too, weren't we? Except against
We were.
Juventus.
Yes, exactly.
And I
Hmm.
think which one we won the last second with Marusic, wasn't it? Marusic scored a
Yeah.
goal. I'm pretty sure that header.
Yes, I believe we won the Coppa Italia one. I want to
Yeah,
say we won that one. We won the Coppa Italia. I remember we won the first Coppa Italia matchup against Juve, and then we lost the second one.
yeah. Okay,
If
that
I'm not
makes
mistaken.
yeah, because they definitely knocked us out. All right, yeah. Um, it's I don't know. I think I think it depends where it. I think it depends on you know what I say you got to go all out for the Coppa Italia game because it's first. Like I mean,
Okay.
you can't think about you can only think about the game in front of you. You can't
Hmm.
think about hey we got to play Napoli again 3 days after this. Like you go for the win.
Mm. That's fair. I totally get that,
What do you
and I do
think?
think that, yeah, I'm conflicted myself as well because Napoli will be going all out for Coppa Italia.
Yeah,
We're in a great position in Europa League as well. For me, uh, because of our position in the Europa League table, I think there's a little less pressure to win these Europa League matches that are coming up. We have Ajax in that month, and we have Ludogorets Razgrad, which we can rotate for that match. But it's
yeah.
tough because,
I think playing so December 1st we play Parma. Then on the 5th we
yeah.
play Napoli, and then on the 8th we play
Mhm.
Napoli again. I think if you beat Ludogorets at home, it makes the Ajax game a
Literally.
rotation game, like a game where it's like, hey, if we tie or lose that match, we still have a pretty good shot at getting first. I mean, I think I was looking at the stats, like it's like there's a very high chance, it's something like 80% that we're going to make top eight. Like they got to be going for top eight at this point for Europa because
Mhm.
it's two less games. But yeah, the Ludogorets game I think is super important to get 3 points, and I think they will.
Yeah, I agree. If we win that, there's a lot less pressure for the Ajax game, and then you have Parma, and Napoli twice. Parma's also away. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think you also go for. I think you go
because then
for
you
a
got
Coppa
Inter
Italia as
after
well.
Ajax because you got Ajax in between Napoli and Inter. That
Yeah, I
game
agree.
has to be that has to be a rotation game where you leave Tavares, someone like Tavares and Rovella on the bench to rest up for a big match against Inter at home.
You know what else I could see Baroni doing? I could see Baroni, if we win that first Europa League matchup of the month, I could see Baroni just saying, guys, we'll lock in, play the starters, both Napoli matches, screw
Yeah,
it,
one hundred
and then
percent.
we'll rotate heavily against Ajax.
Yeah, I mean, because Ajax, you can even see Noslin's been rotated a bunch, and I think those that red card kind of screwed him up a bit in Europa because he probably would have been the benefit of a lot of playing time in those
Yeah,
Europa
100%.
games. But he's a player I want to see play more in the striker position, but there's not much room for him with Dia and Castellanos playing there. Um, but yeah, that's a game I'd like to see him start up front, and then maybe a guy like Delabishiru playing behind them, just like an experimental game
Yeah,
for Baroni.
Shamuna, probably right wing, left wing, one of those spots. There's options there. It's the midfield where things get really tricky because you're really rotating between three guys, and
Yeah, that's true.
we're a team that covers a lot of distance. We cover a lot of distance this year, and so that's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. If one of Guendouzi, Vecino, or Vela goes down, things get
Yeah,
really chippy at that point, right?
you
So
know, you know, Lotito doesn't make a lot of purchases in January, but how are you feeling about that? Because like with I heard Castrovilli is maybe going to be out for like a month. So you
Mhm.
got to think he maybe they did that surgery when they did because they're hoping he'll be back for these
Mm.
maybe these late December matches, but he hasn't been playing much as it is. You think if we're in this position we're in January with this short midfield, do you think we make a purchase?
I think we make a purchase or a loan, and I think the team. I saw some people. I talked to some people saying we got to go out and buy a new nine, and I was like, whoa, like we are doing just
Yeah, no,
fine with what we got right now. The clear gap in this team is midfield depth. That is a clear depth issue right now. We have options in the attack. We brought in Gigot, who's coming for center back. We're four deep now total in center back positions. We're good at fullback positions. He's now back. Marusic, Pellegrini, and Tavares, of course. So for me, because this signing doesn't have to be a starter, we just need some depth, man. It can be a veteran in Serie A already. It can be maybe a younger prospect that we want to bring in on loan or something. I could see us signing at least one midfielder in this January window. I'll be surprised if we don't. I'll be
yeah,
shocked if we don't bring in, and I don't think we need much more after that. I think Lotito, we were looking at the team saying we're really solid across the board. Midfield, if we can just get one midfielder in or two just to back it up, we'll be good for the rest of the season. And I personally am fine with that. How about yourself?
yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating because I think Fabiani did a great job. I think Lotito did a great job with getting him and getting the players that they did, but you know, getting rid of Cataldi and not filling him filling that role is looking like a really bad move because I would have loved to have him. Like I wasn't like a huge Cataldi guy, but I mean, he's really the only guy that can replace Rovella, and we just don't have. We need all we can get in that midfield, like you said. But maybe I don't know. Foloruncho isn't playing too much at Napoli, and he's a big Laziale. Uh, and maybe Lotito goes back to the table for him. But at this point, like we just need a body at this point,
Yeah.
like to give these guys breaks.
No, Cataldi's now we're looking at that. I think at the time as well, when Cataldi left, I'm not a massive Cataldi fan, but it's a player that I love having around because he is, I mean, he's Laziale through and through. He's someone that wants to be here. My I wonder is, Cataldi's at a point in his life where he's entering sort of the prime of his years, and it's like, hey, if I'm not going to be starting here,
Yeah.
I need to leave because this is my last chance to really be the guy in this position. I wonder if that played a factor because we couldn't promise him a playing time when we have Rovella and Guendouzi in the team, right? So I wonder how much of that was a factor. However, right now we could really use someone like that. And like you said, I'm honestly not too picky in January. Just a body, bring in a midfielder,
Yeah. Seriously.
somebody who's just decent, just a decent midfielder. It's okay even if they're like someone that's 33 years old, 34. I'm okay with that. Just someone that we can rotate in some of these matches, particularly because once we start getting into February, knockout stages start happening. Rotation, that willingness to rotate and switch players may lessen a bit because the games and the stakes are much higher and against better opponents. So I'm curious to see how Bologna approaches that. regardless, we need a body there. However, I think that's a great little sort of summary of this last sort of month and stretch here, as well as looking ahead. I appreciate you so much for hopping on. It's been a pleasure. We'll definitely do it another time at some point. But for now, catch us here as we cover this upcoming month. And sempre